Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. The countdown for Invictus has just started, and whilst we still have to wait 2 more weeks for the event, we still have plenty of teasers and news to look forward to. That includes a tease for what we think is the Anvil Asgard, the new Guardian variants, and Flight Blades. In this video, we'll be covering everything you need to know, but before we get started, if you are enjoying the videos, feel free to subscribe and stick around. I have channel memberships open if you want to go the extra mile to support the channel, and I have a link down below for the community Discord. I would absolutely love to have you there. Now, without further ado, let's get into all of the news around Invictus. Now, first things first, as you can see in the background here, the Starlancer Attack has now been officially revealed. I don't want to go over it too much here, but this new behind the ships video gives us some great teases as to what this ship has to offer and some really cool shots of it in action. This ship will release with Invictus launch week in about 2 weeks or so, but I'm sure we might see it in a P2 patch before that happens. And if I can get my hands on it, I will absolutely give you guys a first look. Regardless, it does look like an incredible ship, and I would love to hear your thoughts on its official reveal. Generally, I am curious if you guys think it is on the overpowered side of things. That's kind of the sentiment I've been getting from the community feedback so far is that with everything the ship has to offer, will it be overpowered? Will it just kill a bunch of other ships? I think it's going to probably balance out because of its maneuverability and speed. It seems like the Starlancer series is a bit slower, but regardless, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Do you think it's overpowered or do you think it's just a really nice functional ship? Moving on a bit though, let's get into some of these ship teasers and some of the speculation for the new Anvil Asgard, as well as a small tease of the new Guardian MX as well. Now, in the Invictus Hall, there is a decent sized empty spot for a brand new Anvil ship. It is somewhat debatable whether this is the Anvil Asgard or the Anvil Paladin, but I am leaning more on the Asgard side. Now, checking out the official Invictus Launch Week website, we can get a clear view of the back right portion of this new ship. And whilst this doesn't exactly tell us really anything about what this ship is or what it does, we can eliminate a few of the options we had before. Seeing this thing first, you can already tell that it is not the Anvil Paladin. So, regardless of whether the Anvil Paladin is coming at Invictus, we can tell for sure that this ship right here that's being teased is not the Paladin. The next thing we do know is that it is not an Anvil capital ship. I know some people were hoping for this, and even though I think it would be really cool, I don't think CIG would release a capital ship just like that without any concept or anything like that. So, even though I did like the idea, unfortunately, it just does not look like that's something we're going to get right now. Though, from the looks of it, it does look like it is still a decent size. It's pretty hard to tell from this video here, just given the fact that we have this weird looking angle, but it does look like it could be a little bit smaller than the Starlancer Attack. If we're going based off of the Invictus area where they actually have room to put a new anvil ship, it does look like it could be a decent size, but nothing bigger than, maybe a little bit larger than a Valkyrie. So nothing massive, but not a small ship by any means, I don't think. Speaking of the Valkyrie, though, we also know this isn't just a simple variance, given the fact that the Valkyrie doesn't share the same thruster location. I know most of the rumors around the ship look at it as a Valkyrie variance, but I really am thinking that this is just going to be its own thing. If anything, it kind of feels like this could be a mix of the Valkyrie and the Legionnaire, just based off this little teaser. Now, when it comes to this thing's role, it's a bit harder to narrow it down from just the simple heavy transport information that we already know. So, we know it's most likely moving combat vehicles around, but what type of combat vehicles is really the question here? Well, to me, there are two options. One of them is very unrealistic, and one of them is extremely realistic. The first option is just probably one or two of the normal combat ground vehicles we have, things like the Storm, Cyclones, or maybe even the Atlas chassis if they can manage to get it in there. On the other hand, getting on the more unrealistic side, it would be awesome if we saw a ATLS style carrier along with some sort of combat mech to release alongside it. Now, this is more on the crazy speculative side of things, but I do think it would be really cool to have a dedicated transport for these types of mechs. As we know from Wicklow's Emporium, there is some sort of combat mech, but whether or not that will be the combat mech we get in the future is up in the air. Realistically, though, it's most likely a basic ground vehicle transporter, and I'm very excited to see its full reveal. I'm also just generally digging the white paint we see on it during the tease. It seems pretty clean to me. I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. I know I've heard some rumors about it being like a Pelican style transport from Halo, where it holds something on the back of it and just drops it down. As much as I would love that, it just sounds like the physics engine would have an absolute nightmare trying to deal with that. So I'm not sure if that's something we'll get at least right now, but I do like the idea. There's just so many possibilities with this ship. So I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And we should see some more information about it within the next 2 weeks or so. Now, a less exciting but equally pretty cool tease was the Guardian MX. We can see it in the same teaser for the Asgard. Right in front of it sits a new Guardian ship that we haven't seen before. Whilst there isn't much to see and the ship was basically confirmed to be releasing for Invictus, it's still nice to see a small glimpse of it here. Honestly, I wasn't too sure this was the Guardian MX in the first place. It was pointed out by someone else, but it does seem that has a slightly different model than the variants we have currently. So that's pretty cool. Overall, I'm skeptical about this new missile variant. It just seems that ships that are very dedicated to missiles are really cool in my opinion, and they could have a really cool role. But until we have missiles that first off function, properly and efficiently, like 100% of the time, it's kind of hard to justify using one of these things. And then with the prices of missiles as well, and the fact that once you run out of missiles, you're somewhat rendered useless, it's a little bit hard to use those types of vehicles right now. But I love the idea of it, and I hope that they nail it a little bit more with this new Guardian MX. Now, speaking of missiles, we have to talk about this week's sneak peek, that being of a missile bay of sorts. Now, initially, you look at this and think, oh, we just talked about the Guardian MX, it has to be the Guardian. But I actually don't think it's the Guardian at all. First things first is the camera. The Guardian is a solo ship, so there's no reason to have a camera next to a missile bay. I'm assuming that this is actually going to be a remote missile launcher of some kind. The next thing is the fact that there's this handlebar right here. Honestly, I think that this image is rotated upside down. So I think we're actually looking at this from the wrong orientation. That's just my opinion, though. It just doesn't make sense to have that type of like handlebar sitting right there. And then the next thing is just simply the fact that the background doesn't really look like what a Guardian would look like. Now, I really don't have many ideas as to what it could be, but I don't think it's the Guardian. I've heard some rumors about it maybe being the Grey Cat MTC. Not entirely sure if I see that completely. I understand the handlebar aspect of it, but not entirely sure what I see with this image. I would love to hear your thoughts on this because honestly, I'm pretty stumped as to what this could be, but either way, I'm pretty excited to see what this is. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about here today is the fact that flight blades are coming to Star Citizen. This is a pretty big surprise to me, especially with this whole year. Everything feels like anything that's possibly feature related is on the back burner, but blades were definitely not one of those things I thought we would get at all, even if it's just flight blades. Now, we started to see these pop up in Invictus and, mention of it in different things like the journal and the loading screen. And they basically just gave in on a post. They replied saying, hey, this is a flight blade. Yes, you are correct. And we're going to give you a full spectrum post about it very soon. So good news is that we know they are in fact flight blades, nothing else, nothing random besides that. And we are going to get some information very soon. Unfortunately, that did not come out the same day as when they actually replied to that post. So I don't have that information quite yet, but we should get that next week. I would assume probably on one of these slower days of the week. Now, besides that, that's about all I have for you today. I would really love to hear your thoughts on not only the flight blades, but everything we talked about here, the Starlancer Attack and all the teasers we've been getting. I know that the Invictus hype is starting to pile up a little bit. We're probably going to get a ton more teasers, a lot of information about ships, but hoping that overall during this Invictus launch week, we get just a bunch of news about the game in general. I love the ships. I'm excited to hear about them, but I would love to hear updates on, a couple ship features or ship systems that we've been waiting on, like engineering. That would be awesome to have talk about at Invictus. But regardless, looking forward to the next few weeks, and I hope you are as well. Besides that, thank you so much for being here and sticking around. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next video.